Chapter 142. Yang Kai saw many familiar faces in the sky. Su Yan, Xia Hongchen, and Lan Chudai were among them. Most of the others looked familiar. These people were all High Heaven Pavilion's disciples. The Blood Group Storm House's people were hiding in the distance. They were pointing at the battlefield, rejoicing in other people's misfortune. Among the High Heaven Pavilion's disciples, Su Yan was the strongest. Wherever the holy white figure passed, snow would fall. However, even Su Yan couldn't cause any effective damage to the turtle-shaped monster beast. She tried her best, but could only use her cold yuan qi to slightly slow down the monster beast's speed, reducing the casualties of the High Heaven Pavilion's disciples. The monster beast's defense was too strong. Although its speed was relatively slow, its turtle shell and thick skin were the best defensive artifacts. These yuan qi cultivators couldn't even break its defense. In the field, there were many corpses, all of which belonged to High Heaven Pavilion's disciples. It was actually High Heaven Pavilion's disciples who provoked it? Hu Jiao Air frowned. Su Yan is not that kind of reckless person. While she was puzzled, a young man rushed over with a trace of surprise and undisguised love in his eyes. However, when he saw the two women standing together intimately with Yang Kai, he couldn't help but frown. Jiao Air? The young man stopped in front of the two women and looked at them. He couldn't tell which one was Hu Jiao Air, so he could only rely on his intuition. Long Jun, what's the matter? The other person suddenly asked. It turned out that this was Hu Jiao Air. Long Jun didn't feel embarrassed and just gloated. High Heaven Pavilion actually took the initiative to provoke it. I don't know why, but it actually chased after these people, which led to the current scene. Su Yan provoked it? Hu Jiao Air was extremely surprised. Not Su Yan, it was Xia Hongchen. Long Jun laughed and said, "This idiot led a group of people to take advantage of the time when the monster beast was resting. They wanted to go in and steal the treasure it was guarding. They didn't expect to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Several people died before they could escape in distress." Yang Kai's eyes flashed. He asked, what did Xia Hongchen get? If he hadn't obtained something, how could he have provoked this monster beast to chase after him? Long Jun looked at Yang Kai arrogantly and said impatiently, "Who are you? Answer his question. I also want to know." Hu Jiao Air faintly glanced at him. Long Jun quickly reined in his attitude and said, "I'm not too sure, but according to Xia Hongchen himself, there was nothing there at all. After the monster beast ran out, I also went to check, but there was nothing." Hu Jiao Air sneered. "It's impossible for there to be nothing. It must have been taken away by Xia Hongchen and is unwilling to take it out." Long Jun nodded slightly. "I think so too. But now that Xia Hongchen had not been handed over, the High Heaven Pavilion disciples could only face the monster beast's wrath. Su Yan also didn't want the High Heaven Pavilion disciples to suffer too many casualties, so she had no choice but to be dragged into the battle. This woman's ability was much higher than Xia Hongchen's. If not for her taking action, those people would have died long ago. Relying on a woman to turn danger into safety, Xia Hongchen only has this much ability. Hu Mei Air didn't hide her disdain. Long Jun nodded again and again. "Storm House's Fang Ziki and I also thought so. Originally, we wanted to help High Heaven Pavilion, but Xia Hongchen was unwilling to admit that he took something. It's really too infuriating. How could they not understand the principle of interdependence when the lips are gone? This turtle-shaped monster beast was so tyrannical that even Su Yan couldn't do anything to it. Unless the experts of the three sects joined forces, there was no way to eat it. But Xia Hongchen, what benefits did you obtain from the place it was guarding? Why should we help you? Fighting this monster beast without knowing anything? Blood Battle Gang and Storm House weren't stupid to this extent. We can help, but you have to at least tell us what you obtained. What can you give us?" The reason why the Blood Battle Gang and Storm House's people were watching from the sidelines was also because of this idea. They were waiting for High Heaven Pavilion to be unable to hold on, then they could discuss the price. Yang Kai's eyes were fixed on the white figure in the air. Su Yan's complexion wasn't good, probably because of the huge consumption. But the lives of hundreds of High Heaven Pavilion disciples were tied to her, How could she retreat? If she retreated, at least dozens of High Heaven Pavilion disciples would die. The reason why the turtle-shaped monster beast was so slow was all because of her. Standing in midair, Su Yan danced in the air, her graceful figure fluttering like a butterfly. With a snap of her fingers, several small ice flowers flew out and sprinkled onto the turtle-shaped monster beast. Those ice flowers grew in size in an instant. Each of them had a radius of several zhang. Cold air spread out, and the huge body of the turtle-shaped monster beast was suddenly covered by a layer of ice. With such a restriction, the speed of the turtle-shaped monster beast dropped another level. Countless attacks landed on its body, but they only caused some sparks to fly out from its thick and heavy shell. There was no effect at all. However, Su Yan's complexion was somewhat pale. Xianxia, I'm going to ask you one last time. What did you take from it? Su Yan's pair of beautiful eyes stared at the tortoise monster beast below as she asked Xianxia without turning her head. Hearing those cold and emotionless words, Xianxia couldn't help but shudder. He could hear the anger hidden in Su Yan's voice. Su Yan had never been angry before, but this time was different. Seeing so many innocent High Heaven Pavilion disciples die because of this matter, as the great senior sister, how could she remain indifferent? Xianxia hesitated, struggled, fear, panic, all kinds of expressions flashed across his face, but soon he became firm and said, Su Yan, do you still doubt me? If I really took something from it, why wouldn't I tell you? Hearing this, Su Yan's eyes flashed with a trace of hatred and disgust. Her cold voice rang in the ears of every High Heaven Pavilion disciple. All High Heaven Pavilion disciples, quickly retreat. Since they couldn't beat the turtle-shaped monster beast, their only choice was to escape. Although they didn't know if it would chase them, it was still the only way to survive. After Su Yan's voice rang out, many High Heaven Pavilion disciples didn't hesitate to use their movement skills and quickly fled from the turtle-shaped monster beast. The number of people attacking in the sky also rapidly decreased. One by one, they quietly retreated, but there were still many people who continued to attack. Su Yan's face became extremely dignified, coldly shouting, "Why haven't you left yet?" As soon as her voice fell, the layer of ice that sealed the turtle-shaped monster beast exploded. At this moment, the sluggish tortoise monster beast also broke free from its shackles. Its speed suddenly increased. Its huge meteor hammer tail swept through the air, and the High Heaven Pavilion disciples who were still fighting suddenly fell like dumplings. A few unlucky people were directly swept by this tail and directly turned into a pool of dark red meat paste. Most of them were swept up by the wind created by the tail. They all fell down in a sorry state. The turtle-shaped monster beast roared towards the sky, and as if it had the help of a god, it began to move. With red eyes, it rushed towards Su Yan. The woman in front of it had sealed it in ice again and again. It hated her to the bone, so naturally it wanted to kill her first. Su Yan's hands quickly moved, and as her hand gestures changed, a shocking chill descended from the sky, turning the entire world white as a layer of frost began to form on the ground. Everyone's eyes were now focused on Su Yan. At this moment, her pale face had an intoxicating blush to it, making her look like a real fairy. Distancing herself from the mortal world, standing above the ninth heaven, the people of the world could only look at her with admiration and would never be able to touch her. The turtle-shaped monster beast dashed forward, roaring. It quickly closed the distance between it and Su Yan. The two were like a watermelon and a sesame seed, but the latter's eyes didn't show the slightest panic or hesitation, only indifference. A cold aura that seemed capable of freezing the entire heaven and earth suddenly condensed and fiercely rushed towards Su Yan. In the next moment, a huge white figure suddenly appeared behind Su Yan. It was Su Yan who had been enlarged countless times. A pure white dress, an exquisite and graceful body, a devastatingly beautiful face. Every part of her body had been enlarged countless times, but it was still flawless. It was breathtakingly beautiful. This huge figure's eyes were closed, but in the next moment, her eyes opened. In her eyes, there was a majestic snow mountain, and the sky was filled with snow. The sensational chill descended once again, and it was several times stronger than before. Everyone who stared at this figure couldn't help but have the illusion that they were sealed in ice, and their whole body shivered. Following Su Yan's last move, the huge figure rushed towards the turtle-shaped monster beast without hesitation. The distance between the two was less than 100 feet, and in the blink of an eye, the white figure drilled into the turtle-shaped monster beast's body. At a speed visible to the naked eye, a layer of ice appeared on the monster beast's body once again. This time, it was thicker than before, completely sealing the monster beast in ice. Its moving limbs were also frozen in the ice. Su Yan's mouth overflowed with blood. That move just now had consumed a lot of her energy. Her slender body swayed in midair, and in the end, she couldn't hold on and fell down. At the same time, the frozen turtle-shaped monster beast continued to rush toward Su Yan. Its body was too big, and even if it was frozen while running, it couldn't stop immediately. Su Yan's expression was calm as she fell. Her eyes reflected the turtle-shaped monster beast's body that was quickly approaching her. Her eyes were filled with regret, and longing, but there was no hatred. Cries of alarm sounded. Only at this moment did everyone recover from the shock just now. But now, the person who was regarded as a goddess by everyone was about to die. Amidst the cries of alarm, a figure that couldn't be considered strong was quickly approaching Su Yan. A faint flame appeared under his feet, dragging a faint red light as he ran. Immediately, this figure was wrapped in red light, as if he had turned into a burning fireball. His speed, which wasn't slow to begin with, increased by another level. He flew to the place where Su Yan was about to fall. His feet stomped on the ground, and his whole body shot up like an arrow released from a bow. He stretched out his hands to catch Su Yan, and then arched his body, protecting Su Yan in front of his chest, using his back to face the turtle-shaped monster beast's charge. Chapter 143. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. The hundreds of people had yet to recover from the shock and confusion in their eyes when cries of surprise came out of their mouths. The red light left behind by the figure did not dissipate. Following the trajectory of the red light, they could clearly see where the figure had rushed out from and where he had jumped to catch Su Yan's falling body. The huge turtle-shaped monster beast was rushing over at lightning speed. Less than a foot in front of the turtle-shaped monster beast, a man and a woman were tightly huddled together. Looking at these two figures, it was as if one could see a kind of determination to live and die together without hesitation. At this moment, Yang Kai and Su Yan's eyes met. The latter's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of surprise, while the former's eyes only had a trace of pity and sadness. This kind of gaze made Su Yan's heart tremble. No one had ever looked at her with such eyes. When the elders looked at her, they only felt gratified and approved. When the peers looked at her, they only felt love and respect. When the younger generation looked at her, they only felt admiration and worship. Perhaps some people had looked at her with jealousy and envy. But this kind of pity and sadness was the first time Su Yan had seen in her life. She was a proud daughter of the heavens. No one was qualified to look at her like this. Was he feeling pity for her? What was he sad about? This faint pain was like a sharp needle, piercing Su Yan's frozen body and mind, causing her heart to ache. At this moment, she seemed to be able to understand why he was sad. But so warm. This person's body was very warm. Ever since she was born, Su Yan had never experienced such a warm feeling, as if her whole body was about to melt. After cultivating the Ice Heart's secret art, her body, mind, and emotions were all frozen. In her world, there was only cold, nothing else. Cold and warmth were originally opposites. She should be disgusted by the warmth of his body, so why did she have a kind of lingering feeling? Being held like this by him, even if the seas dried up and the rocks crumbled, even if the sky fell and the earth cracked, she did not want to move a finger. Su Yan involuntarily squeezed Yang Kai's clothes. Time passed again. It's Yang Kai. Hu Jiao Air cried out in alarm. She hadn't even noticed when Kai Yang had rushed out. Just a moment ago, she had also been shocked by Su Yan's shocking display of strength. By the time she reacted, there was no trace of Kai Yang beside her. Hu Mei Air covered her mouth with one hand, suppressing that cry of surprise. Her eyes trembled violently as she looked in front of the tortoise monster beast, afraid that she would see a scene that she didn't want to see. Courting death. Long June coldly. In the next moment, the frozen tortoise monster beast slammed into Kai Yang's arched back. Although Kai Yang had done his best to turn his body and make some evasive movements when he jumped up, his current strength was too low, so he was unable to fly. Furthermore, he had used his own momentum to counteract Su Yan's falling momentum, causing the two people's bodies to be practically frozen in the air for a moment. So this collision was unavoidable. Just as the turtle-shaped monster beast made contact with Yang Kai, his arched back moved forward. Taking advantage of this little buffer time, he minimized the damage he suffered. Pang! Yang Kai and Su Yan were sent flying like cannonballs. They flew for several tens of meters before slowly falling to the ground. The two hugged each other and rolled like a gourd. They rolled for several tens of meters before the impact on their bodies gradually disappeared. Finally coming to a stop, Yang Kai's body was battered and exhausted, his face as pale as a sheet of paper, while Su Yan, who was under his body, was completely unscathed. Only her pure white clothes were a little dirty, and her hair was a mess. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Yang Kai seemed to have lost all his strength. His head fell on Su Yan's chest. Su Yan's beautiful eyes trembled. Her heart, which was rarely filled with waves, could no longer remain calm at this moment. She slowly stretched out her hand and gently placed it on Kai Yang's head, as if she was caressing him, as if she was comforting him. Just now, Yang Kai had protected her with his own body. Almost all of the residual force from the collision had been neutralized by his body alone. Su Yan's body hadn't even hit the ground. Chi. The frozen turtle-shaped monster beast let out a teeth-numbing screech as it plowed a deep gully in the ground. It slid for several tens of meters before gradually coming to a stop, not far from Yang Kai and Su Yan. The world fell silent. Everyone held their breaths as they stared at the man and woman who had fallen to the ground and were tightly hugging each other. If it were any other time, this kind of thing would have aroused the anger of countless people. No man could take advantage of Su Yan like this. Every inch of her skin was sacred and noble. The world could only look up to it, only see it from afar and not profane it. But at this moment, not only was there a man lying on top of her, he even buried his head in Su Yan's chest, smelling her fragrance and feeling her softness. Even so, no one felt there was anything wrong with it. Towards a dead person, could you be angry? Towards a dead person, what was there to be angry about? He had risked his life to save Su Yan. This was a moment of grace that he should enjoy before his death. Everyone felt that under that kind of brute force, Yang Kai would undoubtedly die. Only Xianxia's eyes turned red when he saw this scene. The last time he had seen Yang Kai play with Su Yan's jade white hand, it had already caused him to go crazy with jealousy. It was like a nightmare that he could not get rid of, and every time he thought about it, he felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. But this time, this person was even more excessive, actually doing such a thing in front of so many people. How could he tolerate it? Xianxia's resentment and anger burst out like a flood, almost causing him to lose all reason. Staring at Yang Kai, a thick murderous intent spread out unscrupulously. Su Yan, who was lying underneath Yang Kai, slowly raised her eyes and glared at him coldly. Xianxia shuddered and suddenly sobered up. Looking down again, he was filled with annoyance and regret. If he had risked his life to save Su Yan just now, wouldn't he be the one enjoying this situation now? With his strength, even if he had been hit by that turtle-shaped monster beast, he would never have died. At most he would have been seriously injured. Exchanging his seriously injured body for Su Yan's favor, how could this be a good deal? But why hadn't he reacted at that time? Why had he been so immersed in the huge illusory shadow of Su Yan that he had ignored the crisis she was in? Why hadn't this person been affected by that illusory shadow? Such a good opportunity had been missed in vain. The wind blew, and the world was bleak. Su Yan's hair and Yang Kai's robes fluttered in the wind, causing them to flutter. No one dared to step forward, everyone standing in place. Su Yan's pair of eyes looked up at the chaotic sky, whispering a song from her mouth. This song couldn't be heard by others, only by Yang Kai's ears. Her voice was ethereal, cold, and filled with a trace of yearning. Accompanied by the song, her hand gently patted Yang Kai's head over and over again, like a responsible mother coaxing her child to sleep. On the side, the huge turtle-shaped monster beast raised its forelimbs, its ferocious face frozen in ice, as if it would trample Su Yan and Yang Kai into meat paste at any time. This was a poetic and picturesque scene, but with a desolate beauty. After singing the song, Su Yan stopped and exhaled, a fragrant wind blowing Yang Kai's hair as she whispered, "You've recovered, get up." "What song is this?" Yang Kai didn't move, only a faint voice came out. His voice was weak, but it wasn't fake. Su Yan was silent for a long time before replying, "I don't know, it's a song from my memory." "It's very good." Yang Kai slowly raised his head, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, his face pale, his body trembling, but he slowly propped himself up. Su Yan faintly glanced at him. The various emotions that originally existed in her eyes disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a bone-chilling cold. Yang Kai sighed, knowing that his senior sister had forcibly smoothed out the ripples in her heart, allowing the lake of her heart to once again return to tranquility. Reaching out his hand, he gestured to her. Su Yan reached out her small hand, and with the help of Yang Kai's pulling force, she slowly got up. Brushing her messy black hair, she tucked it behind her ear. At this moment, even though Su Yan was covered in dust and her hair was slightly disheveled, her sacred and inviolable temperament remained unchanged. "How is this possible?" Cries of shock finally sounded, followed by a series of cries. Everyone looked at Yang Kai in disbelief. This man, who they had thought was bound to die, at this moment unexpectedly stood up, and although he looked bleak and desolate, there was no danger to his life. Was his body made of iron? After withstanding such a blow, he actually didn't die? Over at the blood group's side, Long Jun couldn't help but be moved. Hu Jiao Air and Hu Mei Air also couldn't hold back their breaths, heavily gasping for breath. Hu Mei Air's face hung a trace of a relieved smile, the corner of her eyes faintly showing traces of tears. She lost her voice and murmured, "That's great, that's great." As she spoke, she unexpectedly covered her mouth and choked with sobs. Hu Jiao Air was stunned, her hand reaching out to wipe the corner of her eye. There was also a drop of tear there. "What's going on?" Hu Jiao Air was stunned on the spot. Although she didn't hate Yang Kai now, she was also worried about the soul-stirring scene a moment ago, but Hu Jiao Air knew that most people's feelings were the same as hers. No one would be indifferent. But she wouldn't cry tears of joy for an unfamiliar man escaping death, right? What's more, although she didn't hate Yang Kai now, she also didn't have a good impression of him. Glancing at her sister, Hu Jiao Air could almost clearly feel that her heart was relieved of a great burden and relaxed after a great deal of tension. This kind of feeling was deeply felt as if it was her own. So it was like this. Hu Jiao Air's eyes flashed a trace of relief, but also a trace of confusion. In the Stormhouse's area, Fang Ziqi's eyes were shining and he said, "Junior Du, he didn't die." Du Yishuang's face was flushed with excitement, and she patted her chest and said, "Just now, he scared me. If he died, it would be a pity. This person is not bad." In the High Heaven Pavilion's area, Xie Hongchen's face was ashen, and his eyes were lifeless. He lamented that he didn't seize the opportunity just now, and even more so because of Yang Kai's luck with women. He was like a general who had lost a great battle, and had lost the ability to think. Chapter 144. Lan Chudi's eyes glowed as she looked towards Yang Kai. She had suffered some injuries in the battle with the turtle-shaped monster beast, and her clean clothes were stained red with her own blood. Her chest heaved up and down violently as she looked at the man and woman standing under the turtle-shaped monster beast's raised forelegs, her heart surging with emotion. Just now, the figure who had faced death without hesitation to rescue Su Yan had left a heavy mark in the hearts of almost every woman who saw this scene. Lan Chudai was naturally no exception. If there was a man who was willing to give up his life for her, so what if his strength was lower? A woman's request was sometimes very big and sometimes very small. It was so small that just a casual sentence or a gesture could open her heart and let her keep his figure and appearance in her heart. If the woman standing under the monster beast at this moment was herself, how happy would that be? But when she remembered her previous attitude towards him, Lan Chudi's eyes flashed with a trace of sadness as she smiled bitterly. Do you still have the strength to fight? Yang Kai asked Su Yan from the monster beast's side. No. Su Yan slowly shook her head. We have to leave quickly. This monster beast's vitality is very tenacious. I can only freeze it for half a cup of tea's time. If we don't leave now, it will be too late. Where do you want to go? Yang Kai chuckled. Before, it was chasing Xianxia, but now I'm afraid it will chase you. Unless you leave this place, you won't be able to escape. Then I will leave. I can't let all the High Heaven Pavilion disciples suffer because of me. It's not your fault. Why do you want to take responsibility? Yang Kai frowned and said in a slightly fierce tone, You are a senior sister. It's too tiring. Su Yan looked at Yang Kai in surprise. Is he reprimanding me? He dares to reprimand me? Even the elders in the sect have never reprimanded me. However, Su Yan was not the slightest bit annoyed, nor did she have any thoughts of refuting. Look at the current state of the High Heaven Pavilion disciples. Yang Kai looked back and saw many of the High Heaven Pavilion disciples gasping for breath. Most of them were sitting cross-legged on the ground, seizing the time to recover. Even if you leave, can you guarantee that the monster beast will let them go? Without you, they will only die faster. Then what do you suggest? Su Yan asked. Kill it. Yang Kai grinned, but this grin only served to aggravate his internal injuries, causing cold sweat to drip from his forehead. Kill it? Su Yan was stunned. She hadn't expected Kai Yang's appetite to be so big. In front of such a demonic beast, being able to escape with one's life was already not bad. How could one kill it? While the two of them were talking, the ice surrounding the demonic beast suddenly made a noise. Su Yan's expression changed. Why is it so fast? Su Yan Su Yan's eyes, you, you. No matter what, we have to try. If we can't kill it, it won't be too late for us to run. Kacha. The sound of the ice shattering was getting louder and louder. The frozen turtle-shaped monster beast slowly turned its scarlet eyes and looked down. In its eyes, Yang Kai and Su Yan were as small as ants. Stand back. Yang Kai saw that Su Yan didn't move and couldn't help but turn around and shout. Su Yan's body trembled, and without any reason, she obediently stepped back and quickly retreated. At the same time, the injured High Heaven Pavilion disciples also retreated. Yang Kai stood in front of the turtle-shaped monster beast. His slightly thin body was imprinted in everyone's eyes, but he was like a giant with his head on the sky and his feet on the ground. He stood there, blocking the majesty of the monster beast, blocking its huge body, and blocking the wind and rain. His right hand slowly moved. It was an extremely slow movement, breaking the visual perception of everyone. His hand clearly had nothing, but at this moment, it was as if his right hand was holding a 10,000-gene sledgehammer, and he was using all of his strength to swing it. Kacha, the sound of bones dislocating came from that side. At the same time, a little bit of starlight flashed, and a kind of aura that made people tremble in fear erupted from Yang Kai's position. The wind whistled, and his robes fluttered. His black hair also swayed and danced. Kai Yang's roar could also be heard. Using all the strength in his body, he shouted out one word at a time. 3 sect disciple. His right hand was finally raised, and accompanied by a roar, it clenched into a fist. With a brilliant brilliance, the place where Yang Kai stood seemed to have transformed into a beautiful starry sky. As the starlight flowed, his right fist also moved backwards inch by inch. Every time it moved, the power it gave off became stronger, as if he was accumulating strength. If you have the heart. Yang Kai's eyes were about to split open. He tried to control the energy erupting from his fist, not letting it rush out, and still shouted each word clearly. What kind of martial skill is this? Feng Ziqi's face changed greatly. Even from a few hundred feet away, with his Yuan Qi realm strength, He could feel the enormous killing power contained in that fist. Moreover, this fist was only accumulating power and had not truly been thrown. If it was already so powerful after accumulating power, how terrifying would it be when it was actually thrown? So beautiful! Hu Mei Er and Hu Jiao Er both said this sentence almost in unison. On the other side, the sky was filled with stars, like a clear night sky, and in the midst of the madness, it made people forget to return. With a crashing sound, the ground under Yang Kai's feet could not withstand such a violent force, and a crack appeared. His body sank down, and immediately his legs bent. The turtle-shaped monster beast, which was rapidly unsealing, no longer had resentment and murderous intent in its scarlet eyes. What was left was only panic and fear that was slowly becoming stronger. It wanted to run. It could feel the terrifying power in Yang Kai's fist. It had been sealed for countless years, and was in a weak state. It had not been easy for it to wake up from the seal, and it did not have time to taste the joy of freedom. It did not want to be injured, and did not want to fall into that endless sleep again. However, the huge block of ice restricted its movements. "Can you help me?" Yang Kai opened his mouth for the third time, but he couldn't even finish his sentence. Just controlling the energy in his right fist took all of his concentration, so he could only use this intermittent roar to let everyone know what he wanted to express. After shouting out this half of the sentence, Yang Kai's feet fiercely stomped on the ground, and his whole body quickly shot up into the sky, bringing with it the dense star field. The starlight shone, boundless, and majestic. After jumping up 10 feet, Yang Kai's rising momentum stopped, and then he turned around and fell towards the turtle-shaped monster beast's head. Just at this time, the ice that sealed the turtle-shaped monster beast finally exploded. As soon as it was free, the turtle-shaped monster beast looked up to the sky and let out a deafening roar. "Lend me a hand." Yang Kai's roar was also mixed in, but it clearly passed into everyone's ears. In the next moment, that fistful of starlight quickly swung out. This was a kind of change from extremely slow to extremely fast, and it brought about an extremely strong visual conflict. The fist exploded above the turtle-shaped monster beast's head. It was as if there was a muffled thunder in the sky, and also as if there was a violent tremor deep in the earth. When that extremely small fist smashed into the monster beast's head, everyone's heart throbbed, as if this fist could also destroy their minds. A huge halo visible to the naked eye suddenly burst out from the point of contact between the fist and the monster beast's head, and quickly spread in all directions. An unbelievable scene appeared. The boundless turtle-shaped monster beast was unexpectedly hit by this fist, and it staggered. Its 2 legs at the back flew into the air, and its 2 legs at the front bent down. Its head was like a falling meteor, and it crashed into the ground, creating a deep pit and dust and smoke everywhere. Yang Kai was also hit by the rebound of this attack, and flew up into the air. He somersaulted many times in the air before he staggered and fell to the ground. At this time, his right fist was badly mutilated, and his entire arm was dripping with blood, and it was trembling uncontrollably. However, he stood there firmly, and looked disdainfully at the turtle-shaped monster beast that was countless times bigger than him. His thin body exuded a wild and violent bloody aura. The whole audience was shocked, and everyone's eyes trembled violently. No one thought that Yang Kai would be able to beat the turtle-shaped monster beast into such a state. After all, it was an opponent that even Su Yan couldn't do anything about. But now, that earth-shattering fist really did something that they didn't dare to imagine. What kind of fist was that? Thinking back, everyone could only think of the magnificent star field and the boundless murderous intent hidden within the beauty, but they couldn't figure out the trajectory of that fist. Looking at the thin back in front of the huge monster beast, Su Yan's heart fiercely beat. She knew that from today onwards, she would never forget this back, because the owner of this back had done something that she couldn't do. Hu Mei Er's cheeks were flushed red, and she looked at Yang Kai with extraordinary splendor in her eyes. Driven by her sister's emotions, even Hu Jiao Er's heartbeat sped up. What should I do? Hu Jiao Er's heart was full of hesitation. Her current emotions were not her own, but her reaction to her sister's feelings, which made her a little scared. Lan Chudai also felt a rush of excitement, but immediately her heart was filled with bitterness, and only a touch of sadness could be seen on her beautiful face. It could be said that such a back had already become a brand in the hearts of many women. He represented safety and reliability. This was the kind of back that any woman yearned for. Amazing! Fang Ziqi's heart was shaken, and at the same time, he felt a little frustrated. There is actually such a martial skill in this world. There is even someone who can use it. Today, I have learned something new. Why? Xie Hongchen muttered to himself as if he had lost his soul. Why isn't this martial skill mine? Why didn't I get this kind of adventure? If I had obtained it, then I would be the one who attracted the attention of everyone and moved the hearts of all the girls. Why is it him? He's just lucky. Is no one going to help? It's not dead yet. If you don't help, then everyone should prepare to run. Yang Kai's voice sounded again. Hearing this sentence, everyone recovered from their shock. Su Yan quickly shouted, "Those who can still fight, go help." Chapter 145. Under her command, all the High Heaven Pavilion disciples who could still move rushed forward. Elder sister. Hu Mei Er turned her head and looked at Hu Jiao Er. Jiao Er, let's not get involved in this mess. Who knows that the monster beast won't be able to fight back? It's better for us to wait and see how the High Heaven Pavilion disciples react. Shut up, coward. Hu Mei Er glared fiercely at Long Jun. Long Jun was stunned. Hu Jiao Er smiled bitterly. She looked at her sister and then looked at Yang Kai. Her eyes flashed a trace of tenderness and she shouted, "Blood group, go and help." After she finished speaking, she took the lead and rushed forward. On the Stormhouse side, Du Yishuang looked at Fang Ziqi nervously and whispered, "He saved my life." Fang Ziqi pinched his nose and said, "If I say we sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, I will despise you and look down on you for the rest of my life." Du Yishuang looked at her big brother without fear. "Sigh." Fang Ziqi said helplessly, "If you say so, what can I do?" Then he laughed and said, "Today, I have seen such a brave hero. How can I, Fang Ziqi, fall behind? Stormhouse disciples listen to my command and follow me to kill. Let them know that the men of Stormhouse are real men." The male disciples of Stormhouse roared in unison. "Brother Fang, what about us? What about us female disciples?" Du Yishuang asked unrelentingly. "Stand aside and watch obediently. You women only need to know how to take care of your husband and children. Why do you care so much?" After he finished speaking, he led a group of people and rushed towards the monster beast. Du Yishuang wrinkled her nose and said, "I knew you would prefer men over women. I am not worse than you." Then she also rushed forward. After so many days, there were only 700 to 800 disciples left from the three sections. Some of them had already lost their lives in the Heaven's Cave inheritance. However, out of these 780 disciples, about 80% of them had charged forward. The remaining 20% were either injured or too weak to fight. Even if they went up, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Shouts shook the heavens. The disciples of the three sects, three forces, three directions, but only one target. That was the turtle-shaped monster beast that was lying on the ground. Yang Kai's punch seemed to have injured it quite badly. Even if it didn't take its life, it seemed like it wouldn't be able to move for a while. The High Heaven Pavilion disciples were the first to rush up, each one of them with bloodshot eyes, displaying their best martial skills, attacking the turtle-shaped monster beast fiercely, sending sparks flying everywhere. The blood group followed closely behind, followed by the Stormhouse. Among these people, there were only a few who had reached the Yuanqi realm. Among them, Su Yan had no more strength to fight, and Xie Hongchen was still in a daze in midair. Only Fang Ziqi, Long Jun, and Hu Jiao Er were left. Moreover, all of them were cultivators at the first or second level of the Yuanqi realm. With such strength, it would be difficult to cause any effective damage to the turtle-shaped monster beast, which was famous for its defense. After using their martial skills, the Yuanqi was exhausted, but it didn't have any effect. Even so, the disciples of the three sects didn't shrink back and continued to release their killing moves. The area where the turtle-shaped monster beast was located was filled with endless clanking sounds. Yang Kai stood in place and laughed. He felt that he didn't waste the star mark that he had accumulated for a long time. It was enough to arouse their fighting spirit. Su Yan stared blankly at the scene that could almost be called a miracle. The disciples of the three sects had always been fighting, especially after entering the Heaven's Cave inheritance. The open and covert fighting had become more and more obvious. She didn't like fighting, so these days she had been acting alone. Otherwise, with her status and prestige, as long as she waved her hand, all the High Heaven Pavilion disciples would gather around her. This time, Xianxia had provoked a big trouble, so she had no choice but to act. She thought that this time High Heaven Pavilion would be doomed, but she didn't expect things to turn around. And this turning point was brought by the man in front of her. No one had ever been able to make the disciples of the three sects cooperate to this extent. In everyone's eyes, there was no fighting, no scheming, and only one thought: to kill the turtle-shaped monster beast. This in itself was a miracle. Looking at his trembling right arm that was still dripping blood, Su Yan's heart faintly ached. She wanted to go forward and help him heal, but she restrained herself. Because at this moment, this man represented iron blood. If she went forward, she would feel tenderness. At this time, he didn't need to be touched by tenderness. Just as her heart was moved, Su Yan saw the little girl from blood group called Hu rush to Yang Kai's side. Then, with a worried face, she asked a few questions about his injury. Immediately, she took out a healing medicine from her bosom, tore off a piece of her dress, and bandaged his wound. Su Yan's beautiful eyes flashed, and then she slowly turned her gaze away. On the battlefield, perhaps the attacks of the three sects' disciples had awakened the turtle-shaped monster beast. Its originally muddled mind slowly became clear, and its huge body showed signs of moving. Its thick and heavy limbs had already begun to move. Seeing this scene, everyone's heart was raised, and their attacks became more and more fierce. Hit its head, it's injured. Suddenly, a woman shouted. It was Stormhouse's Du Yishuang. Hearing her shout, Feng Ziki and Hu Jiao hurriedly rushed over. When they looked, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They found that on the turtle-shaped monster beast's forehead, there was indeed a crack like wound. At this moment, dark red blood was gurgling out. Because its head was buried in the deep pit, if one didn't look closely, they wouldn't have noticed it. Fuck! Feng Ziji couldn't help but curse. He had been fighting for a long time, but he couldn't even leave a mark on the tortoise monster beast. However, there was a 1-foot-long wound here. This was the mark left by Yang Kai's punch. How powerful was his punch? How could it cause such an effect? Although his mind was shocked, Feng Ziki's hands were not careless. He fought with Hu Jiao to hit the wound first. When the two's moves collided, the turtle-shaped monster beast's body spasmed, and its movements became bigger. Woman, get out of my way. Feng Ziki felt that Hu Jiao was in his way and couldn't help but shout. This girl doesn't want to lower herself to your level, you idiot. Hu Jiao rolled her eyes. Feng Ziki's personality was well understood by the disciples of the three sections. He seriously valued men over women, and believed that only men could achieve great things. He didn't put women in his eyes, and only Su Yan could make him slightly look at her. According to rumors, there was a time when he continuously advised the Storm House's house master, Xiao Ruahan, to not recruit female disciples in the future. At first, Xiao Ruahan ignored him, but in the end he couldn't stand it anymore. In the end, the master and disciple went to Black Plum Town's Spring Breeze Drizzle building together. Since then, Feng Ziki never mentioned this matter again, but his deep-rooted thinking had never changed. Of course, it wasn't that he hated women, but in his mind, men and women were two different species. The former was much more noble than the latter. I am a man, I am proud, I am a man, I am proud. It was reasonable to say that Feng Ziki, with this kind of thinking, should not speak to women. However, he was an extremely flirtatious and unrestrained person. In addition, he was young and promising, his strength was tyrannical, and he himself had a dignified appearance, so he never lacked women by his side. He was often surrounded by beautiful girls. This was an extremely contradictory combination of men. Hearing Hu Jiao Er's words, Fang Ziqi's sword-like eyebrows furrowed. He fiercely attacked the wound on the monster beast's head and shouted, "Little girl, who are you calling an idiot?" Hu Jiao Er's hands flew, and a powerful killing move followed by attacking the wound. She didn't show any weakness. Stinky man. If you really hate women so much, why don't you have sex with your junior brothers and have fun every night? When these words came out, Fang Ziqi's face suddenly paled. His stomach turned, and he almost vomited on the spot. With those junior brothers, when he thought of this kind of scene, Fang Ziqi felt dizzy and was on the verge of collapsing. Seeing his face change, Hu Jiao Er giggled. Her laughter was filled with pride and schadenfreude. "You shameless woman, you really dare to say anything." Fang Ziqi couldn't take it anymore. "Whoever marries you in the future will be unlucky." "None of your business." Hu Jiao Er couldn't help but blush and roll her eyes. Fang Ziqi said, "I won't bicker with you. Let's see who gives the monster beast a fatal blow first." Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Hu Jiao Er sneered. But before the two of them could make a move, a pure white figure suddenly rushed over, carrying with it an icy chill. Her slender jade finger pointed downwards, and a pure white ice flower suddenly appeared in the monster beast's open wound. The ice flower absorbed the monster beast's blood, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a blood-red flower, revealing a beautiful and enchanting beauty. With a crack, the ice flower shattered, turning into countless sharp icicles, and pierced straight into the monster beast's head. The turtle-shaped monster beast suddenly pulled its head out of the big hole in the ground and roared towards the sky. Its huge body swayed, and it couldn't stand steadily. Its scarlet eyes dimmed, and it seemed to be on the verge of death. Fang Ziqi and Hu Jiao Er turned their heads at the same time, and saw Su Yan, whose face was as white as snow, using the little bit of strength she had just recovered to attack with a killing move. After the attack, Su Yan turned her head and fell down. She couldn't fight anymore. Fang Ziqi and Hu Jiao Er could clearly feel the chill that Su Yan was emitting this time, and it was slightly different from before. In the past, the cold was pure, and it was completely cold. It was a kind of extremely pure cold, without any other attribute mixed in. But now, this cold seemed to have something more, and it was even more unbearable than before. "Who provoked her?" Fang Ziqi asked doubtfully. "How would I know?" Hu Jiao Er said impatiently. Coming from the blood group, she felt that the disciples of the other two sects were not good people. Needless to say, this Fang Ziqi in front of her was the epitome of male chauvinism. In the High Heaven Pavilion, Su Yan was a character, but unfortunately, she was like an emotionless ice doll, always keeping people thousands of miles away, making it difficult for people to get close to her. As for Xie Hongchen, there was no need to talk about him. He was a complete coward. He was just a person who worshipped fame and fortune and chased after power. Her own blood group was stronger, at least she was still normal. Once her little sister grew up, she and her sister would be able to support half the sky for their father. If no one provoked her, why did she use the little bit of yuan qi that she had just recovered? Fang Ziqi couldn't understand, so he shook his head. Seeing Hu Jiao Er taking advantage of this opportunity to kill the turtle-shaped monster beast, he couldn't help but fly into a rage. "You woman, even if you win, it's an unfair victory." Chapter 146. Hu Jiao Er sneered, "You said that I am a woman. So what if I have an unfair advantage? As for you, since you think that men are superior, then you want to compete with me. That itself is very problematic." Fang Ziqi was speechless. He sighed again and again. Sure enough, only women and villains are difficult to deal with. The fate of the turtle-shaped monster beast was already half decided when the disciples of the three sects attacked. Su Yan's attack had completely ruined its only chance of survival. At this moment, facing the attacks of the three sects' disciples, it had no power to fight back. Death was only a matter of time. The root of all this was Yang Kai's majestic punch. It was that punch that aroused the fighting spirit of the three sects' disciples, giving them the courage to fight against such a behemoth. Mei Er was helping him bandage his right arm. The blood vessels on his right arm had burst, causing it to tremble incessantly. Yang Kai never thought that the power of the star mark would be so strong. It was so strong that he could not control it. After that punch, his body was directly paralyzed, and he could not move. If not, why would he be standing there like a javelin? Until now, the numbness in his body had lessened a lot, and the intense pain all over his body followed. Looking at the hundreds of disciples fighting, Yang Kai did not notice the ferocious expression on Xie Hongchen's face. Since Yang Kai's punch burst out, Xie Hongchen had been standing in the air, as if he had lost his mind. It was not until recently that he finally woke up. He knew that Kai Yang must have obtained some kind of incredible fortuitous encounter in this Heaven's Cave inheritance, otherwise, with his strength, he wouldn't have been able to survive. If not, he would not have been able to burst out with such a punch. That was a punch that caused the peak 6th order monster beast to suffer heavy injuries. He could not let him continue to grow. If he continued to grow, not only would he not be able to obtain Su Yen, but he would also be in danger. Thinking of this, Xie Hongchen's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. He glanced at the person below. This person was Nie Yong. Like Lan Chudai, he was injured in the battle just now. At this moment, he was recovering not far behind Yang Kai. Nie Yong had mixed feelings. He didn't know what to feel. He had been with Yang Kai for a few days, and had always been unkind to him. He had made things difficult for him everywhere, and had even led people to hunt him down. But at that time, they couldn't find Yang Kai's hiding place, so the matter was left unsettled. However, the existence of Yang Kai still made him feel as if there was a fishbone stuck in his throat and a thorn in his back. He still remembered what Yang Kai had said when he was escaping 10 days ago. In just a dozen days, Yang Kai had become so powerful. Nie Yong was scared out of his wits. If that punch had landed on him, he would have been smashed to pieces. What to do? What to do? Now that everyone's eyes were on the monster beast, they had no time to care about anything else. After the monster beast died, how would they face Yang Kai's anger? Nie Yong noticed that Xie Hongchen was winking at him from the sky. He understood what his brother meant and couldn't help but shiver. But shortly after, Nie Yong's eyes turned cold. Yes, if he wanted to live, he had to kill Yang Kai. Otherwise, he would definitely come for revenge. Moreover, Brother Xie also wanted him to do so. Even if he killed Yang Kai, with Brother Xie's protection, he would be safe. He was sure that he would be safe. Yang Kai's punch had caused Nie Yong to be unable to think calmly. He could only pin his hopes on Xie Hongchen. Slowly standing up, Nie Yong walked step by step towards Yang Kai. In the face of such a crisis, Yang Kai seemed to be unaware of it and still stood in place. Nie Yong quickened his pace. Now that Yang Kai only had Mei Er by his side, as long as he was fast enough, he would definitely be able to kill him. As for what would happen after killing him, Nie Yong didn't think about it. At this moment, everyone's attention was on the turtle-shaped monster beast. No one noticed Nie Yong's movements except for one person. That person was Lan Chudai. Since Yang Kai had saved Su Yen and severely injured the turtle-shaped monster beast, Lan Chudai's heart was filled with bitterness and annoyance. She didn't expect that her junior brother, who had followed her obediently 10 days ago, would be able to display such a majestic aura. If only she had known earlier. If only she had known earlier. This kind of feeling was like she could have had a piece of jade, but had discarded it as a stone. This kind of difference between gain and loss made Lan Chudai extremely regretful. While the others were watching the battle between the 3 sects and the monster beast, she was looking at Yang Kai's back. That back was dazzling. Compared to Xie Hongchen, the difference was like heaven and earth. This disaster could be said to have been caused by Xie Hongchen, but in the end, it was this person who resolved it. With this comparison, the difference between the two was obvious. Nie Yong's actions quickly attracted Lan Chudai's attention. At first, she didn't think too much about it. She only thought that Nie Yong had recovered enough to participate in the battle. But after watching for a while, she found that Nie Yong's target was actually Yang Kai. While walking, Nie Yong's body emitted a faint fluctuation of yuan qi. Lan Chudai was a smart woman. She immediately understood what Nie Yong wanted to do. Just as she was about to warn Yang Kai, she suddenly saw Yang Kai turn his head and look at Nie Yong with a playful expression. He was smiling. His smile was very evil, revealing a few white teeth. Nie Yong stopped abruptly and stared at Kai Yang in fear. He didn't know how Yang Kai noticed his movements, but when he looked at him with that expression, Nie Yong felt his blood run cold. He looked at Nie Yong as if he was looking at a dead person. "Brother Nie." Yang Kai slowly turned around and looked at him with a smile. "Junior brother Yang." Nie Yong swallowed his saliva and slightly moved back. "Are you here to kill me?" This sentence directly exposed Nie Yong's thoughts. He was frightened and quickly waved his hands. He forced a smile and said, "Junior brother Yang, what are you talking about? Why would I do such a thing? You and I are brother from the same sect. Why would I?" Nie Yong could feel his face twitching. It wasn't because he was ashamed of lying, but because he was frightened. How could he not be frightened when facing someone who could injure a sixth-order peak monster beast with a single punch? Not to mention, this person had a death grudge with him. While speaking, Nie Yong stepped back step by step. He raised his hands and laughed, indicating that he didn't have any malicious intentions. His legs and stomach trembled. Yang Kai's face was full of anger. He suddenly shouted. Nie Yong was feeling guilty and didn't dare to answer. He quickly turned around and ran. Before he could run more than a few steps, a whimpering sound came from behind him. Nie Yong hastily turned his head to look and was scared out of his wits. He saw a black awl about a foot long flying towards him from Yang Kai's side. From that awl came a creepy cackle that made one's hair stand on end. The laughter was strange and full of evil. It entered Nie Yong's mind and made him panic. The awl closed the distance of more than 10 feet in an instant. Nie Yong didn't want to sit still and wait for his death. He quickly turned around and blocked the awl. Nie Yong was pleasantly surprised to find that the awl's power wasn't as terrifying as he thought. Although it was difficult for him to block it with his strength, he wouldn't be killed so quickly. Nie Yong was overjoyed. He knew that Yang Kai wasn't as calm as he looked. He must be an arrow at the end of its flight. Nie Yong was pleasantly surprised. He fought and retreated. He wanted to get rid of the owl's attack, but the strange black owl kept chasing him. The weird laughter never stopped. What the hell is this thing? Even if it's a secret treasure, it still needs a person to control it. Yang Kai is clearly standing there motionless. Why is it attacking me? While he was panicking, he suddenly heard footsteps behind him. Nie Yong looked back and saw Lan Chudai supporting her injured body as she rushed towards him. Her face was calm, but there was a hint of determination. Nie Yong was overjoyed. "Senior Sister Lan, save me." Lan Chudai looked at him indifferently. Her expression made Nie Yong's heart skip a beat. While he was trying to figure out what she meant, Lan Chudai suddenly hit him on the back. "Ah!" Nie Yong screamed in agony as he staggered forward. The black owl's laughter grew more and more arrogant. There was a trace of surprise, but it passed through Nie Yong's chest by a hair's breadth. "Senior Sister Lan, why did you?" Nie Yong's body trembled violently. Before he could finish his words, his eyes suddenly dimmed and his body softened. Lan Chudai gasped for breath as she stared at Nie Yong. She found that there was no injury on his chest. The awl that pierced through his chest was also gone. But immediately, the awl rushed out again. Lan Chudai could vaguely hear Nie Yong's screams. This made her scalp tingle and her face instantly lose its color. She looked up at Yang Kai and saw that he was looking at her with a cold gaze. Lan Chudai's heart jumped. She bit her lips and said, "He wants to kill you." Yang Kai did not speak. He just opened his hand and the awl turned into a ray of black light. It wrapped around his fingertips and disappeared. The two looked at each other for a long time. Yang Kai slowly turned his eyes away. From beginning to end, he did not say anything. Lan Chudai smiled sadly and fell to the ground. Her whole body was dripping with sweat. "Ha!" Within Yang Kai's body, the old demon's wild laughter sounded. It was crazy and bloody. Accompanied by the laughter, he seemed to be chewing something. Yang Kai knew what he was chewing. It was Nie Yong's divine soul. However, Yang Kai did not expect that the soul breaker all would have such a strange effect. Do you still want to kill? Do you still want to kill? The old demon shouted excitedly as he chewed on Nie Yong's divine soul. I haven't heard such a moving sound for a long time. I haven't tasted such a fresh and tender taste for a long time. Young master, do you still want to kill? This old servant can move at any time. Yang Kai's heart moved. The old demon's laughter instantly turned into a miserable cry as he begged for mercy. After a while, the old demon slightly recovered. However, he was not as presumptuous as before. He gasped for breath and carefully asked, Young master, why? Why didn't you tell me the true function of the soul breaker? Young master, you didn't ask. The old demon felt wronged. He cautiously replied, Moreover, this thing is too evil. I was afraid that young master would not be happy if he knew about it. I am not happy about it. Yang Kai added, very unhappy. The old demon suddenly trembled. After waiting for a while, Yang Kai said, But this time, you did a good job. Remember, this is the only time. Next time, if you dare to hide anything, you know the consequences. Chapter 147. This old servant does not dare. The old demon immediately surrendered and said, Young master, the little girl who helped you was decisive and ruthless. What do you want to say? I want to say that this old servant likes this little girl very much. Young master, can you talk to her and let this old servant teach her for a few years? In the future, she will definitely be a great help to you. I don't like her. Yang Kai coldly replied. Yes, everything will be decided by the young master. The old demon did not dare to refute and could only sigh in his heart. Nie Yong's death shocked Hu Mei Er on the spot. The High Heaven Pavilion disciples who were healing were also very surprised. They only heard Yang Kai's roar and saw Nie Yong running away. Just as Nie Yong was fighting with the black spear, Lan Chudai launched a sneak attack and Nie Yong fell to the ground, unable to get up. What happened? No one was able to react in time. At this moment, the mountain-like turtle-shaped monster beast collapsed. The disciples of the three sects saw this scene and could not help but cheer. Hu Jiao Er giggled and said, Fang Ziki, this last attack was taken by me. Fang Ziki said sullenly, You are shameless. How does that count? Hu Jiao Er sneered, You can't afford to lose? Fang Ziki was furious. What do you mean by can't afford to lose? If you didn't take advantage of my distraction to attack a few more times, how could you win this battle? You little girl, I will not lower myself to your level. I'm afraid you don't have the face to argue with me anymore. Hu Jiao Er did not spare him. Fang Ziji's face flushed red when his thoughts were exposed. He said impatiently, I won't argue with you about this. First, take the monster core. While speaking, Fang Ziji reached his hand into the tortoise-shaped monster beast's head and fumbled around. After a short while, he took out a round, earthy yellow monster core that was still mixed with blood. Staring at the monster core in his hand, Fang Ziki's eyes burned. The monster core of a peak 6th order monster beast. Tiske, how much is this worth? Long Jun looked at him faintly. Brother Fang, don't tell me you want to take it for yourself? The most valuable thing in this turtle-shaped monster beast's body was the monster core. Although the turtle shell on its back was certainly worth a lot of money. It could be used as a refining material, but who could take away such a large turtle shell? At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Fang Ziki's hand. He chuckled and said frankly, I would like to. Long Jun's expression changed, while Hu Jiao Er looked at him with a smile. But I don't dare. Fang Ziki smacked his lips. If I really took it, would you let me go? Long Jun sneered. Brother Fang is a sensible person. But there is only one monster core. How do we divide it? Fang Ziki turned his head and looked at everyone. This battle was different from the other 8 monster beast kills. The other monster beast kills were fought by the 3 sects alone. But this time, the 3 sects joined forces. Naturally, everyone would have a share of the spoils. As soon as Fang Ziki's words came out, everyone fell silent. One monster core was really not easy to divide. They were afraid that they could only cache it and divide it into 3 parts, one for each of the 3 sections. Thinking of this, Long Jun was about to speak. Fang Ziki said, "This time, we were able to kill this monster beast thanks to Brother Yang from High Heaven Pavilion. How about we give it to him?" Yang Kai, who was standing below, heard this and couldn't help but frown. He looked at Fang Ziki in surprise. Long Jun said discontentedly, "Although he contributed a lot, my blood group was not idle. Many of our disciples were injured. Is there no benefit at all? If you want that turtle shell, you can take it. My storm house has no objection." Fang Ziki pointed to the side. Long Jun was choked. The turtle shell was attacked by countless disciples of the 3 sects, but until now, there was no trace left. Although the quality was good, who could cut it open and take it away? Wasn't this a joke? Just as the two were arguing, Fang Ziki's face suddenly changed. He quickly threw the monster core in his hand. After the yellow monster core flew out, it unexpectedly didn't fall to the ground. Instead, it spun in the air. Along with its rotation, an invisible suction force spread out in all directions. A bizarre scene appeared. 2 other monster beasts' monster cores suddenly flew out from Fang Ziki's arms. Hu Mei Air and Long Jun also did the same. The monster cores hidden in Xie Hongchen's chest also flew out. These monster cores were obtained by the disciples of the 3 sects when they killed the 8 monster beast. They were kept by the disciples of the 3 sections. Now all of them flew out. The 8 monster cores, in a mysterious arrangement, gathered around the turtle-shaped monster beast's monster core. They all spun in a circle, as if they were drawing some kind of mysterious power. The entire Heaven's Cave inheritance suddenly shook. A huge vortex appeared in the chaotic sky. The apocalyptic scene appeared in front of everyone, making them tremble in fear. No one knew what was happening. Only the old demon's excited voice sounded in Yang Kai's mind. Beast Soul Cloud Opening Array. Yang Kai's expression changed. He knew that the old demon must know something. He quickly said, "Tell me in detail." The old demon said, "Young master, I understand. There were 9 monster beasts here to set up this array. The existence of these 9 monster beasts is only to test the strength of the people who enter this place. If you don't kill these monster beasts, this array will not be activated. Now that the monster beast is dead, the array will be activated. This formation will use the 9 monster cores as a catalyst to activate the grand formation and present some things to you." "What is it?" "The thing hidden in the clouds." The old demon said in a deep voice, "If this old servant's guess is correct, that is the real inheritance here." "The real inheritance?" Yang Kai's heart skipped a beat. He looked at the sky and saw that the vortex was getting bigger and bigger. It looked like it was going to swallow the heavens and devour the earth. It was extremely terrifying. The disciples of the 3 sects had already fled in panic. No one stayed below. The old demon replied, "There was a great battle here. Countless experts died here. Naturally, many inheritances were left behind. But there is always a master here. The thing hidden in the clouds is the master's inheritance." Yang Kai's heart suddenly burned with passion. "Young master, you have to leave quickly. This array will be very powerful after it is activated. If you don't leave, I'm afraid you will be affected." The old demon's voice was a little anxious. Yang Kai didn't hesitate. He quickly said to Hu Mei Air, "Tell your sister to take the people further away." Hu Mei Air nodded and ran towards Hu Jiao Air. Yang Kai then shouted to the disciples of High Heaven Pavilion, "If you don't want to die, then stay 10 miles away." Many people heard his words, but they didn't care too much. Yang Kai was too lazy to care about them. He had already warned them. It was their choice to listen. After he finished speaking, he ran towards the back. Su Yen glanced at him. Without the slightest hesitation, she said, "All High Heaven Pavilion disciples, retreat 10 miles. The words of the senior sister were different. Everyone hurriedly moved. They retreated in the direction of Yang Kai. On the other side, Hu Jiao Air received her sister's message and did not hesitate to give the order to retreat. Fang Ziki looked at this scene. Looking deeply at Yang Kai, he laughed and said, "Let's go." The disciples of the three sects were as fast as lightning. Soon, they were 10 miles away. Looking back, the 9 monster cores were emitting a dazzling light. There seemed to be an invisible connection between the monster cores. As they rotated, the vortex in the sky became bigger and bigger. A huge suction force came from the vortex. The corpse of the turtle-shaped monster beast on the ground was pulled and quickly flew into the sky. It entered the vortex without leaving a trace. Seeing this scene, everyone's face couldn't help but change. If they hadn't retreated 10 miles away, they would have been sucked into the vortex like the corpse of the turtle-shaped monster beast. Rejoicing, many people turned their heads to look at Yang Kai. They secretly admired his foresight. The wind whistled and everyone's clothes fluttered. Many people were so scared that their faces turned pale. Those who could enter here were the younger generation of disciples. They weren't very knowledgeable. Many of them hadn't even traveled far, so they had never seen such a terrifying scene. "Do you still want to retreat?" Su Yan suddenly flashed to Yang Kai's side and asked lightly. Yang Kai looked at her and slowly shook his head. Hearing this, Su Yan's worry lessened. "I will personally report Nye Yong's matter to the Elder Council. You don't have to worry." Yang Kai nodded slightly. Although Yang Kai had killed Nye Yong in a short time, it had attracted Su Yan's attention. She was very attentive. How could she not understand the key point? Therefore, there was no need to ask. "There's something in the clouds." Suddenly, someone exclaimed. Kai Yang hurriedly looked up and saw that within the huge vortex in the sky, a golden light slowly appeared. The golden light was dazzling and brilliant. That ray of light was like a hand parting the clouds, revealing what was hidden within the vortex in front of everyone's eyes. "What is that?" someone shouted. Yang Kai couldn't help narrowing his eyes as he stared at the sky. He saw a corner, like the corner of a house. Then, the corner gradually descended. Yang Kai discovered that it wasn't the corner of a house, but a flight of stairs. A flight of golden stairs. This flight of stairs was more than 10 kilometers long. As it descended, another flight of stairs appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Then, another flight of stairs appeared. The speed of its descent was very slow. As it descended, the chaotic vortex in the sky also changed. After waiting for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a dozen flights of stairs appeared from the vortex. After that, who knew how many more flights of stairs had yet to appear? "Old demon, is this the inheritance you were talking about?" Yang Kai asked in his mind. Young master may not know, but this should be the location of the inheritance. Only those who pass the final test can truly obtain the inheritance. "Young master, please look at those stairs. If this old servant's guess is correct, there are at least 10,000 steps. Only by walking up to 10,000 steps can one be considered to have passed the final test. Of course, this 10,000 steps is just this old servant's estimation. It might not be so many, but it might be more than this." Yang Kai nodded slightly. Although the location of the inheritance had been revealed, he didn't know how long it would take for it to fall to the ground. There was no need to pay attention to it. However, his current strength was still too low. He couldn't even be ranked among the disciples of the three sects. Now that 700 to 800 people were gathered here, did he have a chance? Chapter 148. As if he knew what Yang Kai was thinking, the old demon said, "Young master doesn't need to worry too much. Inheritance is a matter of opportunity. Those who are fated can obtain it even if their strength is low. If not, no matter how powerful they are, it will be useless." Did young master forget the opportunity of those two little girls a few days ago? Yang Kai's eyes lit up. He had seen the opportunity of the Hu sisters with his own eyes. He had stayed in the cave for more than 10 days and found nothing, but they had obtained benefits. This was fate. And I know. Yang Kai nodded slightly and immediately turned away from the sky, found a secluded corner nearby, and sat down cross-legged. Since he was going to grab the inheritance, he naturally had to recover first. Yang Kai estimated that it would take 2 or 3 days for the things in the clouds to completely fall. In other words, he only had 2 to 3 days left. Su Yan looked at him in surprise, pondered for a moment, then turned and left the crowd, finding a place not too far away from Yang Kai to sit down. Seeing Kai Yang and Su Yan so calm and collected, how could the masters of the younger generation weaken their own prestige? If they continued to watch like ordinary disciples, it would seem that they were not mature enough. One by one, they coughed lightly. Then, they each went to find a place to meditate. Only those ordinary disciples were left gathered together, making a big fuss without end, and the sounds of shock and exclamations of surprise never stopped. It was unknown what the Hu sisters were thinking, but they actually ran over to Yang Kai and sat down next to him. Yang Kai opened his eyes and looked at them. The 2 sisters were smiling sweetly, making it difficult to distinguish who was who. Yang Kai suddenly frowned. What's wrong? One of them suddenly became unhappy. When Yang Kai saw her expression, he knew it was Hu Jiao Er. It's your blessing that we can sit here. Why are you showing us such a bad face? Yang Kai didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The 2 of you are a pair of peerless beauties. It's my honor to be able to accompany you. How would I dare to give you a dirty look? After interacting with them a few times, they gradually became familiar with each other. They weren't as unfamiliar with each other as before, so they could talk about some things. Hu Jiao Er smiled and glared at Yang Kai. You're such a sweet talker. Hu Mei Er also said, I thought you were a decent person, but I didn't expect you to have such a glib tongue. Yang Kai said seriously, I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. I'm not flattering you. The 2 sisters became even happier. They were laughing so hard that their chests were jiggling, making them look very lively. Yang Kai changed the topic and said, but the people in your gang are very against me. The 2 of them looked at each other and said in unison, Are you scared? Yang Kai laughed. It's not that I'm afraid. It's just that we're not destined to become enemies. Why bother? Hu Jiao Er said, Anyway, you've already offended the male disciples of High Heaven Pavilion. What's the point of adding another blood group? Of course, she was referring to the matter of Yang Kai lying on Su Yan's body. Yang Kai's face suddenly became bitter. Hu Jiao Er giggled and winked at him. Do you want me to kiss you and make others envious of you? Yang Kai looked at her and then stretched out his face. I couldn't ask for more. Hu Jiao Er suddenly blushed and said, You're dreaming. Okay, sister, don't make trouble. Let him recover first. His injuries haven't healed yet. Hu Mei Er shook her sister's arm. She couldn't bear to see Yang Kai being teased like this. Hu Jiao Er rolled her eyes at Yang Kai and obediently closed her eyes. Yang Kai and Hu Mei Er looked at each other and smiled. They also entered a meditative state. As time passed, the disciples of the 3 sects gradually lost their initial curiosity. All of them were recovering. Occasionally, they would open their eyes to look at the changes in the clouds. 2 days later, Yang Kai felt someone walk in front of him. When he opened his eyes, he saw Du Yishuang of Storm House and a dignified-looking man standing in front of him. This man was the one who had proposed to give the turtle-shaped monster beast's monster core to Yang Kai, Fong Ziki. Yang Kai, how are your injuries? Du Yishuang asked with sincere concern. It's not a big deal. Yang Kai smiled at her and turned his gaze to Fong Ziki. He cupped his fist and said, Are you Brother Fong? Previously, Yang Kai didn't recognize Fong Ziki. However, 2 days ago, he had shown goodwill to Yang Kai. Therefore, Yang Kai didn't feel much repulsion towards him. That's me. Fong Ziki returned the greeting and laughed. Junior Brother Yang, 2 days ago, your fist was so majestic that it made Brother admire you. I hate that I can't take your place and enjoy the glory of tens of thousands of people. I really envy you. Brother Fong, you flatter me. Fong Ziki said, Junior Brother Yang is a man of indomitable spirit. In my life, I admire people like you the most. If it weren't for the difference between our sects, I would like to become brothers with you. From now on, we will share weal and woe together. Hu Jiao Er fiercely glared at him. Disgusting. Fong Ziki's eyebrows jumped. Du Yishuang pulled Fong Ziki's arm and smiled bitterly. Brother, you are too enthusiastic. Then she looked at Yang Kai and said, Don't mind him. My brother has a problem with his brain. Junior sister, what are you saying? Fang Ziki immediately glared at Du Yishuang. It doesn't matter. Brother Fang is a forthright man. That's why you don't care about trifles. Yang Kai smiled. He didn't expect that Fang Ziki of Storm House would be such a wonderful person. Junior brother Yang really understands me. Fang Ziki was greatly moved. Hu Jiao Air interrupted from the side. Kai Yang, you have to be careful of him. In this person's eyes, women are like dirt. Only men can enter his eyes. Don't be too polite to him. Who knows? He might look at you differently. After saying this, she covered her mouth and giggled. Hu Jiao Air's words were easily misunderstood. Yang Kai's face suddenly turned green. Fang Ziki bitterly said, Hey, how can you slander people like this? Junior brother Yang, don't listen to her nonsense. I, Fang Ziki, am not the kind of person you think I am. Yang Kai dryly coughed. His expression was a little unnatural. Fang Ziki was so anxious that the veins on his forehead bulged. He looked around and pulled Du Yishuang, who was standing next to him. Then he hugged her waist and kissed her lips. Seeing this, Kai Yang was stunned. Hu Jiao Air and Hu Jiao Air's mouths were also slightly open. Du Yishuang's struggling and whimpering entered their ears. The two sisters couldn't help but blush. After a long time, Fang Ziki let go of Du Yishuang. He wiped the corner of his mouth and laughed. Junior brother Yang, do you believe me now? Yang Kai prostrated himself in admiration and gave a thumbs up. Brother Fang is a real man with iron blood. This praise touched Fang Ziki's heart and he couldn't help but laugh exaggeratedly. Du Yishuang's face was red and her eyes were watery. She slapped Fang Ziki's face. You bastard! Du Yishuang stamped her feet, covered her cheek with both hands and ran away. Run slowly, don't fall. Fang Ziji shouted at her while rubbing his cheek that was slapped. Brother Fang, aren't you going to chase after her? Yang Kai looked at Du Yishuang's back and was speechless for a while. Don't worry about her. She's throwing a tantrum. She'll be back soon. Fang Ziki didn't care. Sure enough, after 10 breaths of time, Du Yishuang walked over to Fang Ziji with a red face. Her head was so low that it was almost touching her chest. Her 2 hands were constantly twisting the corners of her clothes. She walked over to Fang Ziji in a weak and gentle manner. Heh. Fang Ziji winked at Yang Kai, feeling quite proud of himself. Brother! Du Yishuang plucked up her courage and pulled Fang Ziki's arm. What are you doing? Fang Ziki raised his sword-like eyebrows and shouted. Du Yishuang raised her hand and quickly slapped Fang Ziki's other cheek. She gritted her teeth and said, You're a big bastard. After this slap, Du Yishuang seemed to have vented her anger. She turned around and arrogantly walked away. Fang Ziki touched his cheek in a daze. His eyes were full of disbelief. Hu Jiao Air and Hu Mei Air's shoulders trembled as they laughed. Obviously, they didn't expect things to turn out this way. Originally, when Du Yishuang came back, the two sisters despised her. But now, all that was left was admiration. This junior sister? Fang Ziki murmured. He didn't know what to feel. He turned his head and looked at Yang Kai. He forced a smile and said, I'll deal with her later. Hu Jiao Air clapped her hands and said, This show is really good. Ai, Fang Ziki, oh Fang Ziki, you also have a day like this? Fang Ziki's mouth twitched. He sighed and said, If you always walk by the river, how can you not wet your shoes? Yang Kai coughed. He didn't want to continue with this nonsense. He said, Brother Fang, why are you looking for me? Hearing this, Fang Ziki's expression became serious. He raised his head and looked 10 miles away. He said seriously, This time, I came to ask you one thing. Junior brother Yang, how much do you know about that place? Hearing this, Hu Jiao Air and Hu Mei Air's expressions also became serious. Yang Kai's eyes flashed. Before he could answer, Fang Ziki said, A straightforward person doesn't speak in riddles. Of course, if junior brother Yang said that you don't know anything about this place, I would believe you. Yang Kai looked at him. He knew that when he warned everyone to stay 10 miles away, he had some clues. If he didn't have some understanding of this place, why would he retreat in advance? However, this kind of thing didn't matter. Even if he didn't say anything, when the thing in the clouds completely descended, the disciples of the three sects would still go and investigate. He looked at Hu Jiao and Hu Mei. They were also looking at him. Thinking of this, Yang Kai had a plan in his heart. He said, I don't know much, but when the thing in the clouds descends, I will go and take a look. Fang Ziki heard this and asked, Is it dangerous? Yang Kai smiled. Brother Fang, you are asking the wrong person. Fang Ziji nodded, cupped his fists, and said seriously, Many thanks for junior brother Yang's reminder. If you have free time in the future, please come to Storm House as a guest. This elder brother will definitely enjoy a drink with you. You are welcome. After Fang Ziki left, Yang Kai looked at the sisters with a smile. You already know what you want to know, yet you still want to sit here and let me be hated by the male disciples of Blood Group. You want to drive us away? Hu Jiao stared at him. Hu Mei hurriedly said, We didn't come here because of this. Hey. Chapter 149. Before she could finish her words, Hu Jiao interrupted her, So what if we approached you because of this? She couldn't bear to see Yang Kai think so badly of others. Were they sisters so scheming? They were really heartless. Aware of her anger, Yang Kai didn't speak again. Hu Jiao continued, When that thing lands, we will follow you. In any case, you know more than us. You provide us with information, and I will be responsible for protecting you. How about this deal? Protect me? Yang Kai looked at her and raised an eyebrow. Don't you need protection in your current state? Moreover, your strength is so low. What if you encounter danger inside? Hu Jiao chuckled. Don't tell me that High Heaven Pavilion's Su Yan will protect you. She hasn't even looked at you these past few days. You saved her in vain. Do as you wish. Yang Kai didn't want to waste his breath. In any case, when the time came, everyone would go in together. The more people there were, the more they could take care of each other. Hu Jiao coldly snorted and pulled her sister away from Yang Kai. After waiting for another day, the thing in the clouds finally revealed its full appearance and was about to fall to the ground. Everyone stood up and stared blankly at the thing that was 10 miles away. It could be said to be a huge and majestic building, but what was imprinted in everyone's eyes was an endless flight of stairs. At the very top of the clouds, there seemed to be a shadow of a palace. Where is the inheritance? Yang Kai gently exhaled. At the same time, many of the disciples of the three sects were excited and nervous. Although they didn't know as much as Yang Kai, they still had some eyesight. They knew that such a huge thing must have a treasure. Now, everyone was waiting for the moment when it landed. Under the gazes of countless people, the huge building finally made contact with the ground. Accompanied by a muffled sound, the earth trembled slightly. The huge whirlpool in the sky also changed strangely and disappeared. The muffled sound lasted for a long time before everything settled down. The building was now firmly on the ground. A shout came from the disciples of the three sections. Hundreds of people suddenly started to move and rush towards that direction. Yang Kai was also walking in that direction, but he was not as anxious as the others. Just as the old demon had said, inheritance depended on luck, not strength. In his eyes, a pure white shadow seemed to pass by. Raising his head, he saw Su Yan's robes fluttering in the wind. Her pace was not fast, but it was not slow either. It was as if she was taking a leisurely stroll in the courtyard. There was a trace of nobility in her otherworldly appearance. Noticing Yang Kai's gaze, she turned her head and glanced at him. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't say anything. In the blink of an eye, their gazes were blocked by the disciples of the three sections. From the side came two fragrances, the two beautiful sisters of the blood group, one on the left and one on the right, accompanied Yang Kai, one with a charming smile, the other with a seductive look. The elder sister said, I said I would protect you, so I will definitely protect you. Don't worry, us sisters have already obtained a kind of inheritance. If there are any benefits this time, we won't fight with you. Yang Kai raised his head again, but Su Yan's figure was no longer there. "Smelly brat, I'm talking to you." Hu Jiao couldn't help but feel annoyed when Yang Kai didn't respond. "I heard you." Yang Kai helplessly responded. "Humph, I don't know what's so good about you." Hu Jiao whispered, but Yang Kai didn't hear her clearly. After traversing the distance of 5 kilometers, the three of them arrived in front of the dazzling golden stairs. Next to this incomparably large building, there was a layer of hazy light curtain. On the light curtain, there was a faint door-like thing. The disciples of the 3 sects, either alone or in groups, each found a door and drilled into the light curtain. The number of people quickly decreased. It was strange to say that standing in front of the light curtain, one could clearly see the scene on the stairs, but the disciples of the 3 sects who drilled in all disappeared without a trace. It was as if they were swallowed by an invisible big mouth. Seeing this scene, the 2 beautiful sisters couldn't help but feel a burst of fear. "Yang Kai, where did they go?" Hu Jiao nervously asked. "I don't know." Yang Kai shook his head and walked to a door that no one cared about. He flicked his hand into the door, and only a layer of ripples appeared. He couldn't see the situation on the other side. "Are we going in or not?" Hu Mei's courage was even smaller, and she was already trembling. Yang Kai raised his head and glanced at the clouds before walking straight through the door. Seeing him so decisive, Hu Jiao clenched her teeth and pulled her sister's hand. "Let's go in." Stepping into the light curtain, what they saw was the same as what they saw outside. Inside was the endless stairs that stretched upwards. Yang Kai, who had entered before, was also in front of them. He was standing at the bottom of the first step, lost in thought. Looking left and right, there was no trace of other people. It was as if each door led to an independent space. Only those who entered from the same door would stay together. Looking back, Yang Kai's hand touched the door. The ripples dispersed and the door on the light curtains suddenly disappeared. The way back was cut off. Yang Kai took a deep breath and lifted his foot to step on the first step. After stepping on, Yang Kai couldn't help but frown and stop. "What's wrong?" Hu Jiao asked. "You two come up and try." Yang Kai called the 2 sisters. The 2 didn't hesitate and stepped forward. When they stood next to Yang Kai, the 2 sisters' bodies moved slightly at the same time. "What did you feel?" Yang Kai asked. "There's energy rushing to the soles of our feet." Hu Jiao replied. "Hot energy." Hu Mei continued. "Well, this is probably the test." Yang Kai smiled slightly. What he felt was different from the 2 sisters. He found that the energy rushing to the soles of his feet was actually of the yang attribute. Circulating the true yang tactics, this energy not only didn't cause any harm to him, but also replenished his yuan qi. But the 2 sisters were different. They had to circulate their qi to dissolve the energy that rushed to the soles of their feet. He gained, but they lost. Comparing them, the difference was obvious. But this energy is too weak. If this is the test, it's not worth mentioning. Hu Mei was a little excited. Her strength was only at the 2nd level of the initial element, but she could easily resist it. "Don't lower your guard." Hu Jiao glanced at her sister. "This staircase has many levels. If the energy is stronger the higher we go, I'm afraid we won't be able to resist it at the end. Whether it's true or not, we'll know once we try." Yang Kai stepped forward again and stepped onto the 2nd step. His footsteps didn't stop. 3rd step, 4th step. The 2 sisters followed closely behind. After walking through 100 levels, the 3 of them found that Hu Jiao's previous deduction was correct. The higher they went, the stronger the yang attribute energy contained in the staircase, and the more yuan qi they needed to dissolve. Looking up, they saw that the stairs were endless. The 2 sisters couldn't help but secretly complain. Unlike them, Yang Kai was enjoying himself. After walking through the 100 levels, his dantian had 1 more drop of yang liquid. All of it was the yang attribute energy that rushed to the soles of his feet. Yang Kai and the 2 sisters casually walked through the first 300 levels. Every time they stepped on a level, there would be a burst of yang attribute energy rushing into their bodies. As the number of levels increased, the energy gradually became stronger, but it wasn't to the extent that the 3 of them stopped. Yang Kai didn't need to say anything. The true yang tactics itself required this kind of energy. What made him a little surprised was Hu Mei Er. This girl, with her strength at the second level of the initial element boundary, was actually able to easily walk through the 300th level. But after the 300th level, the energy contained in the stairs became stronger. Every time the three of them stepped on a level, they had to pause for a moment before continuing. After reaching the 400th level, this situation became more and more obvious. The two sisters had to pause for about 3 breaths each time. After being affected by this kind of hot yang attribute energy for a long time, their bodies were exuding a little sweat. But now, it seemed that they were coping with it with ease. Along the way, Yang Kai silently counted the steps of the staircase. He believed that this test wasn't just like this. If it was really just like this, then it would be too simple. There must be some unforeseen events and unknown dangers. At the 490th level, Hu Mei Er and Hu Jiao Er stopped. The elder sister glanced at the happy Yang Kai and was unconvinced. She said that she was here to protect him this time. Why did it seem that she was the one who was more tired when walking these stairs? Why was his face full of joy and enjoyment? Let's rest for a while before continuing. Yang Kai glanced at them. No need. Hu Jiao Er gritted her teeth and stepped in front of Yang Kai. After walking 10 steps in a row, when Hu Jiao Er stepped on the 500th step, her delicate body couldn't help but shiver. Yang Kai saw this and quickly pulled her down. The two of them looked at each other and Hu Jiao Er asked, "How did it change?" Yang Kai's brow furrowed, but he didn't ask any further questions. Stepping onto the 500th step, this time what rushed into his feet was no longer a hot yang attribute energy, but instead an icy cold ice attribute energy that sent chills down his spine. This change of hot and cold was also the reason why Hu Jiao Er was surprised. Is this the test? Kai Yang smiled faintly. He didn't expect that the stairs in front of him would contain the yang attribute energy he needed. If that was the case, then anyone who cultivated a yang attribute secret art, as long as they had enough time, would be able to reach the top. But now it was different. After the 500th step, there was an impact of cold attribute energy, which was the opposite of yang attribute energy. Facing the cold attribute energy rushing into his body, Yang Kai had two options. One was to use the true yang yuan qi in his body to neutralize it. The other was to use the true yang secret art to refine it and absorb it into his bones. But no matter which method he chose, the consumption of his yuan qi was inevitable. Moreover, the consumption of the second method was much higher, so it wasn't as easy as just neutralizing it. If Yang Kai didn't have a lot of yang liquid stored in Dantian, he might have chosen the first method. But now that he had more than 100 drops of yang liquid stored in Dantian, he could boldly choose the second method without any worries. Using the true yang secret art, the cold energy rushing into his body was instantly refined and then absorbed into the unyielding golden skeleton. Let's go. Yang Kai turned around and smiled at the sisters and continued to lead the way. Hu Jiao Er looked at Yang Kai angrily and whispered to her sister, "What is he so proud of?" Hu Mei Er smiled bitterly. He's not proud. Chapter 150. He's so proud of himself. That stinky brat dares to look down on me. Gritting her teeth, she and her sister activated their secret art. While dispelling the cold energy in their bodies, they chased after Yang Kai. On the first day, the three of them climbed the 1,000th step. When they reached the 1,000th step, Yang Kai took a step forward and found that it was as he had guessed. The energy in the 1,000th step had turned into the yang attribute. The change in the 500th step was a mixture of heat and cold. This kind of increasing impact was enough to stop 90% of the disciples from the 3 sections. Only those with profound strength could rely on their own cultivation to reach the 1,000th step. Logically speaking, Hu Mei Er should not have been able to reach this point, but she did. Moreover, she did not feel too tired. On the other hand, Hu Jiao Er, who was in the Yuan Qi realm, looked tired. The three of them chose to rest here for half a day. At the same time, at the top of the 3,000th step, a pure white figure was walking step by step towards the top. Her steps revealed a calm and tranquil aura, as if the impact of the stairs did not hinder her in the slightest. Her clothes fluttered in the wind, and her expression was indifferent. Occasionally, she would reach out and tuck her hair behind her ear. Her aura was calm, and there was not the slightest sign of exhaustion. When the impact from the bottom of her feet entered her body, it disappeared like snow melting in the early spring. Her delicate face made the sky pale in comparison, but she was as pure as ice and as pure as jade. She was like a flawless ice doll. She was Su Yan. She cultivated the ice heart secret art, and like Yang Kai, she had a unique advantage in this test of alternating heat and cold. There were 700 to 800 disciples from the three sects who cultivated yang and cold attribute secret arts and martial skills. It was not just Yang Kai and Su Yan. At this moment, these people all experienced their own advantages. However, there was a difference in strength. There was a difference in secret arts, and no one could reach the 3,000 step like Su Yan. Less than the 2,000 step, there were also a few figures. Xie Hongchen's face was gloomy as he gasped for breath. He sat cross-legged on the stairs and used pills to recover his energy. The inheritance is mine. Everything here is mine. As long as I obtain this inheritance, I, Xie Hongchen, will become the strongest disciple of the three sects. I can make high heaven pavilions stand above the other two sects, and even subdue them. I want all those who question me to die without a burial place. Yang Kai, you are the first. Haha, I am Xie Hongchen. You are the true overlord of this world. Xie Hongchen was on the verge of going insane. The Yuan Qi in his body was in chaos. Normally, when one's strength reached his level, such a situation would not occur. This was clearly a state that only a cultivator in the Qi transformation stage would have. The scene of the disciples of the three sects fighting against the turtle-shaped monster beast was still lingering in his mind. What he saw was not the disciples of the three sects working together without hesitation. All he saw was the disdain those people had for him. This was because the turtle-shaped monster beast was provoked by Xie Hongchen, but in the end, it was heavily injured by Yang Kai, giving the disciples of the three sects the opportunity to kill it. Although from the beginning to the end, no one said anything about him. But this silent criticism made Xie Hongchen angry. Many of his junior brothers and junior sisters who used to worship and respect him looked at him with strange eyes. This made Xie Hongchen unable to bear. No one can look at him with that kind of eyes. No one. A few hundred steps in front of Xie Hongchen, Fang Ziki was gasping for breath as he stepped down. His whole body could not help but shiver. It took him a lot of effort to dissolve the cold qi that rushed into his body. Even his eyebrows showed signs of turning white. Hey, let's take a rest. Fang Ziki's expression was calm. He also knew that the inheritance depended on luck. Although the level of one's strength was related, but it was not a decisive factor. So even though he coveted the inheritance, he was not as crazy as Xie Hongchen. It looks like this place is specially prepared for those who cultivate yang and cold attribute cultivation methods. Fang Ziki muttered to himself as he took out a pill from his chest and put it in his mouth. Then why am I here? Isn't this a waste of time? It's better to take a few junior sisters and see if there are any other benefits in Heaven's Cave inheritance. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was reasonable. After a moment, Fang Ziki suddenly stood up and flew down. Not long after, he left the endless stairs. When he returned to the ground, he saw Du Yishuang sitting cross-legged with a sad face. Hey, junior sister Du, why are you here? Fang Ziki was surprised. Du Yishuang coldly glanced at him. Thinking of this brother's frivolity, her face became red. She turned her head and coldly snorted, ignoring him. Come. Brother was looking for someone to accompany me. You just happened to be here. Fang Ziki walked forward and pulled Du Yishuang up. Then he hugged her without any scruples. What are you doing? Du Yishuang struggled, but how could she get rid of Fang Ziki? His hand was like an iron hoop around her waist. Du Yishuang's heartbeat became numb. Let go of me or I'll bite you. Du Yishuang fiercely said. She was like a little tiger baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. When a man does something, a woman should just shut up and follow him. Fang Ziki said domineeringly. Du Yishuang was absent-minded, but she didn't struggle as hard as before. On the 2000th step of the stairs, Long Jun of the blood group was also recovering. These people were the young talents of the three sections. Their strength was almost the same, so there was not much difference in the number of steps they were on. Xie Hongqian's madness was different from Fang Ziki's indifference. Long Jun was nervous but also had a trace of expectation. He didn't know if he would be able to obtain the inheritance. It would be great if he could obtain it. Long Jun obviously didn't have much confidence. After all, although his strength was the best among the three sects, he was older than the others. He wasn't that outstanding. Apart from the few people at the front, the rest of the three sects' disciples were mostly around the 1,000-step mark. Yang Kai and the Hu sisters could only be considered to be in the middle. There were still many people who were struggling to move up the 1,000-step mark. Each step required a lot of yuan qi, and they had to rest for a long time before they could move forward again. However, this kind of hardship was also a great benefit for these people. The test on the stairs was not only to select the candidates for the inheritance, but also to persevere and not retreat. Naturally, they would also obtain benefits as they moved forward. This was a kind of tempering of the mind. Lan Chudai was also struggling on the 100th step of the staircase. She was a beautiful woman with a proud figure. However, at this moment, her hair was covered with frost. Her whole body was trembling, but she clenched her teeth and refused to give up. Every time she thought of Yang Kai's cold and emotionless eyes, she felt a pang in her heart. She clenched her fists and breathed heavily as she stepped on a new step. She was ambitious and was willing to rely on the strong, but was this wrong? She was just a woman. Her aptitude was not very good. After entering High Heaven Pavilion, she had worked hard to cultivate until now, but she only had the strength of Qi Transformation 7th level. What was this kind of strength in the eyes of the strong? She wanted to rely on the strong just to find a support for herself. This was just a way for a woman to live a good life. She wasn't Su Yan, she wasn't a proud daughter of the heavens who attracted the attention of tens of thousands of people. Besides her own mind, she had nothing else to rely on. Perhaps this body that made men drool and women envied was a strength in the eyes of outsiders, but Lan Chudai never regarded it as her own capital. If possible, she didn't want to have such a body and appearance. Let men think about it, let women be jealous. 10 days ago, when that person was in a crisis, she chose to remain silent and did not help him. Perhaps, at that time, if she had said a few good words for him, he would not have looked at her like that. A stingy junior brother. Why can't you be magnanimous? No one can be relied on. Only by becoming strong yourself can you be considered strong. A stream of qi suddenly rushed out of Lan Chudai's body and circulated around her body. Lan Chudai was stunned for a moment before she smiled like a flower. While she was lost in her thoughts, she unexpectedly broke through her cultivation and reached the qi transforming stage 8th level. Closing her eyes and feeling the changes of her breakthrough, Lan Chudai looked excited. Let me quickly become stronger here. She once again stepped forward, faster and lighter than before. Lan Chudai's heart was filled with joy and joy. After resting for half a day, Yang Kai and the Hu sisters once again moved forward. After reaching the 1,000th step, the pressure they felt was obviously different from before. The energy contained in each step was much greater. At the beginning, the two sisters did not need to rest, but the further they went, the longer they needed to rest. The same was true for Yang Kai. Although he practiced the true Yang secret art, his strength was still too low. It was impossible for him to walk through these steps like Su Yan. Therefore, the speed of the three was not very fast, and no one was dragging each other down. They gritted their teeth and persevered until they reached the 2,000th step. Only then did they stop to rest again. Along the way, the energy contained in every 500 steps was different. Cold and hot alternated, causing people to have to face a completely opposite energy impact just as they got used to it. Not only did this consume a lot of energy, but it was also a test of the mind. The Hu sisters were somewhat out of breath, their breasts rising and falling. On the contrary, Yang Kai's face was calm. Although he also consumed some energy, the yang liquid stored in the dantian was enough to cope with the current situation. Aren't you tired? Hu Jiao could not help but look at Yang Kai. From the beginning until now, Yang Kai did not show any signs of fatigue, which puzzled Hu Jiao. If not for the previous opportunity, Hu Jiao believed that it would be impossible for her sister to reach here. She would have been stopped at the 1000th step. However, Yang Kai was only at the initial element stage. Along the way, she did not see him take any pills. How could his body have so much yuan qi to squander? It's okay. Yang Kai also sat on the steps to recover his physical strength and spirit. Monster! Hu Jiao smiled bitterly. Chapter 151. After resting for half a day, the three of them once again set off, stepping onto the staircase that still remained. Time slowly passed, and on the third day after the towering structure fell to the ground, many of the disciples from the three sects could no longer hold on and began to escape one after another. Although they had yet to reach the peak, none of them showed any signs of depression. Instead, they were filled with excitement and joy. This was because everyone had more or less obtained some benefits from this trial, and many of them had directly broken through their current realm. This naturally made them happy. On the fourth day, even more people ran down. Some were sweating profusely, while others were shivering from the cold. After these people recovered, they still wanted to enter the light curtain again. But this time, no matter what method they used, there was no way for them to break through the light curtain's obstruction and climb the endless stairs. Realizing this, everyone knew that they only had one chance. If they missed it, they would never have another, causing many of them to feel regret in their hearts. Everyone thought that if they had been able to persevere inside, they would have obtained even greater benefits. The trial in front of them was like this, but how could many things in life not be like this? There was always only one chance, and if they did not grasp it properly, they would only lament after missing it. On the fifth day, more than half of the disciples from the three sects had withdrawn from the trial. Everyone gathered around the light curtain, envying those who were still persevering inside and lamenting their own choices. However, most of the discussions were about who would be able to reach the peak. Without a doubt, Su Yan's voice was the most popular. Because everyone who had come out knew that the cold and hot alternated, Su Yan's secret art undoubtedly had a great advantage. Moreover, among the young disciples of the three sects, her strength was the strongest, so it was not surprising that she could reach the peak. This voice made many of the High Heaven Pavilion disciples glow with pride. Su Yan's weight in the hearts of every High Heaven Pavilion disciple was not low. This was the same for both male and female disciples. Because Su Yan's strength and nobility had exceeded the bottom line of their envy. All that was left was admiration and worship. On the 5000th step, Yang Kai and the Hu sisters were still struggling. Yang Kai was still the same as before, but the appearance of the two sisters was not so good. It was not that they were tired. It was just that her appearance was somewhat alluring. The steamy stairs made them sweat profusely. Their faces were flushed, and their eyes were watery, like two ripe peaches. He took a bite, and his mouth was filled with sweetness and juices. So hot. As Hu Jiao walked up, she used her hand to lift up her collar and gently fanned herself. Her body was faintly discernible. She wasn't wearing much to begin with. Now that she was sweating, her dress stuck to her body, outlining her perfect curves. Hu Mei was also sweating profusely. Her ruby-like lips were now a little dry. She kept licking her lips with her tongue to moisten them. Why don't we rest a little more? Hu Jiao said bitterly as she glared at Yang Kai walking in front of her. She didn't expect that Yang Kai, whose strength was much lower than hers, would be able to act as if nothing had happened. This made her feel both annoyed and impressed. Hearing her words, Yang Kai, who was walking in front of her, stopped. He turned his head to look at her and said, "It won't be hot if we walk a little more." Looking down at Hu Jiao's chest from a high vantage point, he was able to see the soul-stirring white and blood-boiling deep cleavage. Yang Kai was slightly absent-minded. Hu Jiao obviously also noticed her loss of self-control. She quickly put her collar back and covered it with her hands. She glared at him and said, "What are you looking at?" Yang Kai laughed. Not only did he not withdraw his gaze, but he also unscrupulously lingered on the two sisters. Being stared at like this, the Hu sisters suddenly felt uncomfortable. The reason why they walked behind Yang Kai was because they were now soaking wet. How could they have the nerve to walk side by side with him? But they didn't expect this person to be so shameless and bold. "You're still looking." Hu Jiao vigilantly pulled her sister behind her, using her body to cover. Her face was red as she angrily glared at Yang Kai. "Ha!" Yang Kai was overjoyed. He turned his head and continued to walk forward. He opened his mouth and said, "This walk is extremely boring. There is some scenery on the side of the road, so naturally I have to stop and enjoy it." "I really misjudged you," Hu Jiao bitterly lamented. "I thought you were a gentleman, but I didn't expect you to be so filthy. I can't wait to dig out my own eyes and smash them in your face." Yang Kai didn't look back. He lightly said, "A man looking at a woman is a matter of course. What does this have to do with being a gentleman? Besides, if you are angry, you should dig out my eyes." "Why dig out your own eyes?" "Jiao are you confused?" Hu Jiao was even more furious. Her chest heaved up and down. She gritted her teeth and said, "Do you want me to beat you up before you shut up?" "You're wrong again. Have you forgotten that you are here to protect me?" Yang Kai suddenly turned around and raised his eyebrows at her. His tone was full of ridicule. These words made Hu Jiao's face turn red. Her murderous aura disappeared in an instant. She shyly said, "Can you not mention this matter? It's embarrassing." Before, she took the initiative to come and protect Yang Kai. But now, it seemed that he didn't need any protection. Instead, it was the two sisters who slowed him down. When she thought of this matter, Hu Jiao was embarrassed. "Okay, you two talk less. If you have the strength, you might as well walk a few steps." Hu Mei stood up to smooth things over. "Humph, turn your head away. You're still looking." Hu Jiao glared at Yang Kai. Yang Kai smiled slightly and didn't continue to argue with her. Following behind him, Hu Jiao whispered to her sister, "I don't think he is a good person. Be careful in the future. Don't let him eat your bones and not spit them out." "Sister." Hu Mei was extremely shy. After walking for an hour, Kai Yang suddenly came to a halt and stood quietly in place. The two sisters quickly stepped forward. When they set foot on the stairs where Yang Kai was, they couldn't help but shiver. "It's so cold." Hu Jiao rubbed the back of her hands, goosebumps rising all over her body. The two sisters' fragrant sweat was instantly frozen into ice shards. The 500 step changed and they arrived at the place where the cold attribute was. Without saying anything, the Hu sisters walked forward one by one and stuck to Yang Kai's side. Like quails in winter, they shivered incessantly. From the 3,000 step until now, the three of them had spent their days like this. At the place where the Yang attribute was, the two sisters followed behind Yang Kai. At the place where the cold attribute was, they snuggled up to Yang Kai for warmth. Along the way, there was a feeling of sharing weal and woe. Another day passed. When the three of them stopped to rest again, the Hu sisters looked at each other and nodded. It seemed as if they had come to a decision. "Yang Kai!" Hu Jiao suddenly shouted. "What's wrong?" "We thought about it and decided that we won't go with you." Yang Kai showed a trace of surprise, but he didn't say anything and just waited for the rest. Hu Jiao bitterly said, "With your own leg strength, you should be faster. If it weren't for taking care of us, you definitely wouldn't be here now. If we go with you, we'll only be a burden." Hu Mei nodded slightly and said, "Sister wanted to protect you, but now it seems that the test here has little to do with your strength. There's no need for protection." Yang Kai still didn't say anything and just quietly looked at them. Hu Jiao smiled and said, "Do you think we're going to give up? We just don't want to go with you. You go your own way, we'll catch up." "Have you decided?" Yang Kai asked. Slowly standing up, Yang Kai said, "If you've decided, I won't persuade you." These two girls were good at understanding people, and persuading them would only make him look hypocritical. Looking up at the peak of the clouds, Yang Kai said, "Thank you for accompanying me on this journey. These few days weren't so boring." Hu Mei Er's face flashed with a trace of joy and shyness. The hostility and vigilance in Hu Jiao Er's heart was shattered by this sentence. "I will go to the top. I want to see what's at the top." Yang Kai turned around and stepped up. His speed was undoubtedly much faster than before. "Remember to tell us later," Hu Jiao Er said with a smile. "Okay." Waiting until Yang Kai's figure became a small black dot in their field of vision, the two sisters stood up and continued to walk up while bitterly resisting the invasion of the cold air. However, they didn't take more than a few steps before two soft gusts of wind suddenly appeared in the air. Under these gusts of wind, both of them couldn't help but lean back. In the next moment, the two of them felt light and unexpectedly floated up. They were directly sent out of the endless staircase by the two gusts of cold wind. When they came back to their senses, their bodies had already fallen outside the light curtain. Still in shock, she turned her head to look and found that many people were like her sisters. It was obvious that they had just been sent out, and there was some fear on their faces. Moreover, without exception, these people were all women, and there was not a single man. "Where's Yang Kai?" Hu Mei Er looked around but didn't find any trace of Yang Kai. "He's still inside," Hu Jiao Er whispered. Although she didn't know what had just happened, since there was no trace of Yang Kai, he was definitely still inside. But why were only women sent out? The sudden appearance of a large group of girls also stunned the disciples of the three sects who had just come out. Not long after, the disciples of the three sects quickly surrounded them. Some asked about their well-being, while others asked about the situation of the women inside. After listening for a while, the Hu sisters discovered that their experience was the same as the two of them. While walking, they were suddenly wrapped in a soft wind and sent down. They didn't suffer any injuries. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.